For more on this development, a climate activist with corporate accountability and participation, Ronke Ige, joins me from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Thank you so much for joining us on World Now. How would you describe the participation of African countries at COP27? Have they been able to speak with one voice?
Thank you. Yeah. There's a lot of African representation here as far as the parties go. That is the state delegation. So yes, of course, because also before we came to COP27, we took the lessons that we got from COP26 in Glasgow. We translated them into documents. We were able to compile the voices of frontline communities at the very front line, the most vulnerable communities at the front line of climate crises and injustices. So we're able to document all those. And sorry if you hear noise in my background, it's some of the world leaders flying in. So what we did was also to visit the African countries' pavilions to be able to talk with our leaders and our delegation just before they go into the negotiation room. So yes, we have seen Nigeria, we have seen Ghana, we have seen Togo, we have seen Uganda, we have seen South Africa. Those are some of the African countries that we have seen on the ground and we have been able to engage, especially with the report that we did that captured the impact of climate change on frontline communities in African countries. So yes, they are very much on the ground.
Well, so the advocates of climate change actually talk more about climate adaptation, but but Nigeria, for instance, focuses on climate mitigation, which is even a far cry from adaptation. So does it look like this has become a secondary concern?
Okay, from what I get, I think you are asking me about adaptation. So yes, also from some of the commitments or pledges that were made at COP26, you could hear a lot of big promises or adaptation, mitigation work plan. There was supposed to be loss and damage financing and all of those things. But I kid you not, they are beginning to sound like rhetorics because also when you see what's going on in the negotiation rooms, and that's what our point is also about. It has always been about that over the years. When you enter the negotiation rooms, you find out that the corporations still have a huge presence. Governments of the global north still have a huge presence and a huge influence on whatever the policies become. And that's what we have also been imploring our governments on the continent to do. We can't keep going into negotiation rooms like beggars. We suffer the biggest impact of climate change. And ironically, we contribute the least to the climate change that you see. Meanwhile, our people bear the brunt the most. So in all of these things, you wouldn't see anything like personally and our constituents here, our communities that are present here, we haven't seen any commitment given to those pledges that were made. Because number one, tracking is faulty, very faulty. Monitoring is faulty. And then when you have found wanting, are there penalties? So for global North governments that have made certain commitments, what are the penalties that are on ground for when you don't meet up with your pledges? Those things are not present. They are not on the ground. So adaptation, mitigation, loss, and damage financing still sounds like rhetorics. And let me shock you, today marks 27 years. Of course, maybe it's not a shock to you because we are talking Nigeria. 27 years after the gruesome execution of the Ogoni 9. We are talking Kensarowiwa. So later today, we are going to be having an action in honor of the Ogoni 9, and specifically Kensarowiwa, the activist and the writer who we lost in Nigeria and on the continent of Africa. Those are some of the things we are talking about in the line of, even when we speak of loss and damage financing, that doesn't cover climate reparations. So there's age-long climate injustice that has been done on our soil, either in Nigeria or as Africa as a continent. And then there has to be reparations for those ecological damages and loss of life, loss of livelihood, which is totally separate from loss and damage financing that we are talking about. But right now, everything has been modeled up. They talk about loss and damage financing as though that takes care of every other thing that has happened in the past. Right. So those are some of the actions we are taking here, and we are saying, no, that cannot be correct.
Yeah, very quickly, just like, based on what you said, we have actually seen in the past that wealthy countries have failed to deliver on their climate financing promises, repeatedly. So I'm talking about the impact of this climate change. Who takes responsibility? Will affected African countries be compensated? And if yes, by who?
You are saying who bears the largest brunt of the impacts of climate change that we see, right?
Who takes responsibility? You know, they are asking for compensation. So who takes responsibility for the impact of this climate effect across the African continent?
Okay, thank you. I hope I get the question. So what we are saying, yes, compensation, but not just compensation, but let's call it what it is. It is reparation. And that's some of the things we are also talking about, working out mechanisms that would make whatever reparations are coming to get to the people themselves. Because when you talk about the impact, it's actually communities that bear the brunt.
Yeah.
You see, you are in Nigeria, you have seen the drastic change in weather patterns that we have experienced in recent times, especially the issue of flooding also. These things have human angles to them. Some of them are not just natural disasters or natural phenomena, but these are also things that have been further pushed and aggravated by human activities. And most of the human activities that you see, they are caused by corporations, extractive activities that are going on in Nigeria, even as we speak. So fossil extraction is still causing us a lot of devastation.
Yeah.
And the people that bear the largest brunt, as I said earlier, are the communities either in the Niger Delta or in the north. Now you are seeing a lot of flood, even in the northern part of Nigeria. Meanwhile, what we were talking about was desertification in the north. But now you can even see flooding happening in the north. You see soot pollution happening in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. You see flooding, even in Lagos. So no aspect of our land is spared any longer. So people, communities are at the forefront of this impact, and they should be the one claiming the compensation and whatever reparations are coming. So things we should be talking about right now should include what are the mechanisms and frameworks we will set in place for people to be able to be directly compensated, so that those compensations or reparations don't also get lost in the mix somewhere. So those are some of the conversations we are driving here and pushing forward in the talks.
We continue to see how the whole thing pan out at the end of the day. A climate activist with Corporate Accountability and Participation Africa, Ronke Ige. Thank you so much for those insights. Thank you.